First podcast recorded in 2018.
Ooh,
here we are.
Yes.
Thanks.
Welcome.
What a privilege.
Yeah. The privilege is all
So
ours.
exciting.
The currents we can stay as long as there's a wave that's taking us to.
Okay, Camila Meza, welcome to Soul Sisters. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sisters.
We were trying to remember, I was trying to remember, if we were at the New School at the same time. You went to the New School for Jazz.
Yeah.
I was there around 2007, 6, 7, 8.
6. Oh, okay.
We didn't overlap.
No, because I got there at 2009,
Okay.
and then I went there for 4 years. But
Okay.
So then you graduated on 2008.
I stopped going in 2009.
Stop. We know this.
But you didn't
Went on
overlap
to
in 2009?
No.
No,
Okay, I guess
I don't
not.
think
Got
so.
it.
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have
Almost.
friends in common.
We have many friends in common,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So did you come here to go to school?
Yes.
If you moved from Chile to go to school at the New School?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, basically, because I have loved jazz for so long, and I never really knew what it was like. I made this trip in 2008, 1 year before moving, without any kind of ambition of I want to move there. No, just checking it out and going to the jazz clubs and checking out the music, the art scene, and everything. And that month, it was in July 2018, it was revelatory that okay, you have to be here, you know?
Yeah.
So then quickly after I got back to Chile, I applied long distance recording, blah, 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 to the New School. And then in 4 months, it changed my life completely. So
Wow.
that was, but I've never regretted, I guess. There's moments where I'm like, what am I doing here? But
No, regrets
Yeah.
are wasted
Yeah.
emotion. Well, I was just going to say, before we go totally back, just to talk about, I feel like there are two reasons why you're on the show today, which one is that you guys have connections and Dara has seen you and filmed you before and you've been on her radar. But also because Dara reached out to the Winter Jazzfest.
So, right, I wasn't aware of the Winter Jazz Fest, and when I discovered that this was coming on New York Scene, this is posting tomorrow, so Wednesday, the 10th through the 17th. Winter Jazz Fest, 130 groups, 600 musicians all over the city. Jazz is coming. And
Jazz is coming.
Jazz is coming, as if it weren't always here, all over in the little pockets and corners. But I was very excited to discover that the theme of Jazz Fest this year is beautifully, explicitly laid out as being promoting social justice, gender equality, immigration rights. And so that was fascinating. And there are panel discussions about it and a real emphasis on bringing in women jazz musicians in a way that sadly is unusual. So
Right. They said that they made an explicit effort to book women jazz artists this year. Yeah, which is great.
yeah, I mean, I love too the idea of generating through the music and through this amazing community getting together to just show their art, to generate also a conversation towards so many topics that today we're all constantly sort of thinking about,
Right,
you know?
Does it feel new for the jazz community to be having this kind of role in a conversation?
Well, honestly, I feel that in the history of jazz music, there's always been, at least part of that community that has always been really revolutionary, really in a sense calling for things that the society needs to rethink or that we need to pay attention to. I mean, if you learn from where this music comes from, I mean, it is the sound of resistance. It is the sound of struggle. It is the sound of community and gathering together to overcome. You know. So in that sense, I feel that in a way, no. The answer is no, because it's been forever. But today, it feels way more present than 10 years ago.
But at the same time, to a certain extent, women have kind of been left behind in that. Jazz has also become notorious for its treatment of women musicians and women as an audience. So there's some kind of disconnect there that's also happened, which we were talking about before you came in, that I've just been surprised to learn all of this kind of just recently for me, this kind of pervasive misogyny in jazz. Not that I'm surprised because, as Dara pointed out, like it's everywhere, so of course it's in jazz too. But just because I do tend to think of jazz as being a more progressive art form, and therefore assumed that that would touch the way it treated all of its participants more than apparently it has.
Yeah, well, that's it. It is definitely a topic, you know, like women in jazz. It is actually, it's been an organization for a long time, sort of to give voice and space, you know, to women. Also like taking to back, like looking back to history. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Why the prominent jazz musicians have always been men. Right. I do make the sort of analogy with the stage of women in all fields at those times. You know, like if you think of everything, even science and like, you know, we have always been struggling, you know, to like find that space, and that also that the feeling that you can just come in to a group and feel the same, you know, like it's weird. It's still in the works, basically, you know. Personally, and this maybe it's a I would love to discuss this, because personally, I've always had an issue to find my place in a society or whatever, just because I'm women, you know. So in that sense, like I have this sort of like paradox to be considered for instance in this in the lineup just because I'm woman.
Right.
You know, it's weird.
I have a quote I wanted to read about that from Norma Carson.
Okay.
It was a trumpeter, and she had an all-female band during World War II when all the men went off to war. And she says, "I've never found it an advantage to be a girl. If a trumpet player is wanted for a job and somebody suggests me, they'll say, 'What, a chick?' and put me down without even hearing me. I don't want to be a girl musician. I just want to be a musician." And so I'm curious, the way that you just described that feeling is I was wondering, there's this tension between the need for us to discuss this right now because it still is a huge thing, and we need to see all of the art through this prism, but at the same time, it fights with the idea of wanting to talk about the art. And you do have a new album coming out, and you are, so I understand that. And so that is part of how you feel right now, is that like there's this balance that needs to happen?
Well, I mean, of course, I want to see a society where we don't necessarily have to classify ourselves, you know? Yeah. In a way, it's part of our healing process to do so right now, because we have to address things, you know, that are being unfair, that are being, you know, and because we haven't addressed them, we get into this sort of like status quo of, you know, of like, oh yeah, it's normal that there's like 30 male musicians and one female musician, you know? Right. You know, that's how it is. But maybe not. Let's talk about it, you know? Yeah. Like, and in that sense, I totally, you know, I'm with this conversation. Absolutely, you know? It's time to wake up. You know?
It would be interesting if we spoke to men about this. If men were on a podcast or men were doing whatever interviews they were doing, and they should be asked this as well. I mean...
Are you advocating to have our first man on the podcast? I don't know if I'm ready.
A different podcast. Yeah. I guess that would make me sort of want to ask you the question. It's sort of old news by now, but it's coming back around with this Jazzfest, and we were sort of new to this idea of the Robert Glasper musical clitoris saga, we'll say, where he, in an interview, said that women are more like they're not interested in listening to solos and they sort of just want to feel the groove, and that's like just classifying them in that sort of narrow way. And there was this big backlash. And then Sasha Berliner, a vibraphone player who's at the New School now, right?
Yeah.
Wrote a long, extensive, thing about the pervasive misogyny and inappropriate treatment. I don't know if you experienced your experience at the New School. I'd be curious how you felt. But did you feel that there was an appropriate level of kind of like pointing fingers and feeling about that comment? Or do you feel like it was a little bit like, okay, if we handle this a little bit differently, I don't know. What did you have? A reaction?
Well, it was like definitely a topic within the jazz community, because, it's particularly sensitive at this time of, our mindset to be talking that way about like how women perceive music, when you know that like. There's like so much more first, and you're stigmatizing. How do you say it? Stigmatizing women in a very particular way, and like women basically cannot be intellectual, or women cannot cannot like perceive music. He said something about like women don't like solos or something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a woman. I love solos. So, like, there's something that's not broad enough, you know?
Right.
And I'm sure that, like, I mean, I think Robert Glasper has worked with so many female musicians. I'm sure that, like, he understands better,
Right.
That it's not, but I, talking about, like, the more like the bigger picture, it's true that like it's been like jazz has been like historically male dominated, that like it has always been a little more difficult for women to get to the place where men hold in this group of musicians,
Mm-hmm. I imagine it's like any profession or anything where the better you are, like you have to go that extra 110% in order to prove yourself.
Yeah, if there's one thing that like, because I've had conversations with like female young students, and they do ask me stuff like this, and I have to be honest with them, and I have to tell them that you have to do twice as better.
So that was your experience? That's been your experience?
Like I basically, like I have to, first of all, you have to trust yourself, like as a, like basically, because you have to kind of like get over the I'm not good enough thing, you know?
Yeah. But you have to feel good enough. You have to feel like I am good enough.
And that is also
But even if you don't.
Yeah.
Right, faking it. Okay.
Or like working towards it, and like, I mean, it's so much pressure because it's that, and also that like you come into this society, I'm calling them, it's a society, but like this world with the doubt of like, you come into a jam session, a woman playing guitar, what can she do? Or like a woman playing, so you come in with the negative, she can't play.
Right.
So you have to show like double, that like, so it's, I mean, honestly, it's like a lot of work to be a woman.
Did you notice
Holy
a shift
shit.
when you would start, like the better and better you got, and the more your reputation sort of preceded you, like your treatment, the way that people would.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
totally. And we work so hard for just that, like to be able to come into a group and feel that you are respected, that like you're not like I mean, and I'm sure that this happens everywhere, like you have to prove yourself.
Right. Yeah. Who have your biggest allies been to help you feel like you were being seen just as a musician?
Well,
like, have you had pivotal teachers or fellow musicians?
Totally.
Or yeah.
In that sense, you know, like it's dichotomal. No, I use these words because I translate them from Spanish, and then I don't know if they work.
We know what you mean.
Yeah, because obviously I've you know, connected in a super like amazing way with my fellow musicians. You know, like male and female.
Right.
So sometimes it creates this it's hard to generalize, right? Like, because some of like my older, like my mentors are men that have like pushed me to, you know, like do things that like I would, you know, I wouldn't be able to, you know, like someone that gave me so much opportunity to like show me to the jazz scene was a pianist called Aaron Goldberg. He like helped me record my first album, then like, you know, presented me to other like booking agents and all you know, sort of like a mentor. And then, you know, I have so many. Basically, I've created like a family, you know, in New York and with the musicians that I play with, and yeah, I mean, it's in that sense, it's brought to like, you know, who has helped me and like
right. Taking it back just a little bit, I'm curious because you started out in Chile. Tell me if this is correct. Really admiring rock musicians, like classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. Those were your idols. Yeah, and then
everybody's.
And then you your world exploded when you discovered jazz and certain jazz guitarists. And I'm curious what the difference, what it was that like excited you, and how would you describe that feeling of going from like
jazz or
virtuosic rock, which is like really exciting, soloing as well in a very different way, and then you were like, oh my god, but there's this. Like, what is it that excites you about the jazz?
That's a good question. I think that I got into rock music. It was like really like liberating for me. Like as a teenager, I think like, you know, that music really like speaks for your like rebellion and your like, you know, all those feelings. And I was really attracted also to, you know, the rock guitar playing and the freedom and the blues that was in it. And then, you know, someone like Jimi Hendrix, he also sort of like started shifting. He helped like sort of gave me a little bit of like a new window into more sounds, because he was using some like more like advanced harmonies kind of vibe, you know, like tensions. That's like, it's like colors of chords that are more like in the jazz harmony. And then I was like, oh, this sounds so good. And then like, then when I discovered like that like improvisation, you know, like that there was this world of jazz that like people would improvise. Oh my god, that blew my mind, because that was exactly what I was looking for. Like in Chile, I never like really was confronted with, you know, like improvisation so much, but it was something that I knew that like I needed to find somewhere. I didn't know how to call it or anything, you know, but like I would get tired of playing the same thing all over again. So like I need to like find music that would be different every time, you know? Yeah. And that's how like when I found jazz was like,
and that was it. No looking back.
Well, actually it's interesting because from this whole like experience with jazz music, I've been able to kind of like also start grabbing like this other influences that like, you know, are also close to my heart from the past, and sort of make like my own like crazy thing, you know, mixed up, you know. So it I consider it a kind of jazz, but it also could sound very, you know, I don't know what kind of music.
Right. Well,
you
what
play.
is the definition of jazz in a sense when you want to say if there's an improvisational element, what's the difference with solo? Like if there's a rock solo, that's not jazz, but like when you bring improvisational elements into something but bring other like rock elements or folk or pop or something, like, is that still, I mean, it's all genre defining and
it's
trying
true.
to
And
put things on a label, but
yeah, we deal a lot with that question.
right.
What is jazz?
What is right today? Because it's so many things, and this festival especially is interesting to see the wide range of things that are happening.
Oh yeah, and I personally love that, you know, sort of generosity of the genre, if you call it, to, you know, just include all this extremely creative music, you know.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
And your second album, I believe it was, you had you like played some Zeppelin covers or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you have experimented with actually like integrating that.
Totally, yeah.
But now you're working with an orchestra.
Yeah.
So the Nectar Orchestra.
The Nectar
Tell
Orchestra.
us about that experience.
That's my new project.
Uh-huh.
And we recorded last year, so it's like we're gonna release this year, and I'll have news very soon about all the details. I think it's gonna be really good, actually.
We got a sneak of it, and it is amazing.
Really?
Oh my God, it's
gorgeous.
incredible.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's beautiful.
I'm so excited about it. It sort of like develops further like my sound with the inclusion of a string quartet, which I've always loved. It kind of enhances so much like my singing and my playing. It's so inspiring. Like the band itself, it's such a great platform for me for like inspiration and expression. And yeah, like we recorded last year, and it's a really awesome group of people too. It's like
That's the best.
Yeah, it's I'm collaborating with a really close friend, Noam Weisenberg. He wrote the string arrangements, and we have Eden Ladin on piano, who's also a very close friend, and Keita Ogawa, an amazing Japanese percussionist, and a string quartet. And we're opening for Buika.
Amazing. On Friday. Yes?
Yeah,
This Friday at Town Hall. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're still in the hustle and the grind as a working jazz artist in New York, or do you
Always.
Yeah.
It never stops.
Does it feel any different right now? Like
Well-
where you are in your career? Is there any more breathing room?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think it's more of like a mindset,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And
But what do you think made
and
that difference for you?
Experience.
Okay.
You know? Like I think time is like the best
Right.
the best ever.
Like
the best
knowing
teacher.
that more gigs will come and that
Knowing that I feel that every little thing you do counts.
Okay,
You know?
yeah.
And you're in demand as a side man woman. Side woman.
Let's change the
Yeah, right? Do people
paradigms.
say that? Side woman,
I
woman?
say it.
Okay.
I say it.
Yeah.
we're saying it now.
We're saying it now.
Yeah.
Side woman, you play a ton with other people.
Yeah.
And you're a band leader. And now you're a band leader of an orchestra as well, which is just, I mean, the sort of resume and the what you've done keeps growing. So I imagine like the opportunities are just all over.
Yeah, I
the
think,
place.
well, yeah, what I said, like from the very beginning when I came here, we all have like our struggle stories from our first years in New York. I'm sure we can like, you know, develop that. But like, you know, from like, you know, playing like little gigs and just go one, like asking like, do you need music here? To like, you know, asking a better musician, hey, I would love to play a session with you, you know, like all those things kind of like little by little they start creating like your like this new world where you can, you know, find community, which I think it's one of the most important things, especially when you come from, you know, like the bottom of the world and like come here to New York, know nobody.
Did you not know anybody?
Actually, the only person I knew was this friend of my sister.
Okay.
That he became one of my best friends.
Yeah. Nice.
And I stayed with him at his apartment for my first semester. Without him, I would have gone back to Chile. Seriously. Yeah. And then, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But when you come to jazz school and you're studying jazz guitar, I imagine that at least at the beginning, you're just like, you're so focused. Like the number of hours you practice, probably still now, but like, you know,
You don't have time for anybody anyway.
Right, kind of. I mean, the experience that I had at the new school was, you know, the serious people were so serious. And that they lived in the practice rooms, which there were never enough of, but they were always always there. And yeah, I mean, it's jazz is just such a like it's like a boys' club in a way, but it's a club of like such an intellectual, high level of technical, demands that if you're part of that, then you're just like in this club. I feel like in a way, is that fair to say? Like
club. I love it.
You've reached a level of proficiency where you are now like an in-demand player, and people know that like your level of skill is at this high level, and it's just not an easy thing to achieve.
Well, yeah, it takes so many hours. I think you have to love it so much.
Yeah,
otherwise you just quit, because like it does take like so much focus, as you said, and there's also like some kind of responsibility to your instrument too. Like. I was thinking that because I sort of like didn't practice too much for the Christmas whatever like New Year's, and then I started feeling like this thing inside of me, like almost like I haven't gone to church vibe, I'm not religious. Total guilt. Like
what's a lot? What's a good feeling? How many hours? Like, what is a lot?
Well, at this point of my life, it kind of changes because I am also like constantly learning like music for this gig, and so those count as practice hours. But like, if I don't have anything else to do, I think at least 2. I feel like, okay, now I can watch a movie.
Yeah.
What do you? I mean, I'm curious to know what you both think. The major keys to beating back the boys' club of jazz are, because I feel like jazz is different than other parts of the music industry. Like we've talked to artists on here who said like, getting to the people who control the playlists on Spotify, for example, or like the labels but with jazz, do you feel like it's a lot more about like bookings and like where would it really make a big impact to open it up more to women?
It's a good question. And I think, I don't know where I was reading this, but there was this questioning like, how many women have been on this like 50 best CDs of 2017 or something like that. And then they started like realizing that like, okay, but how many women jazz critics are there? I mean, if you go into like if you go into this like in the deep structure of the way that like our society is built, how are you gonna attack the top if you actually don't have women like listening to and reviewing? So
and that probably
interesting.
Extends to bookers, is like all of
exactly.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting point. We rarely, if ever, have talked about that on this show,
critics?
Especially. Yeah, like journalists and the people that are writing about the music. Yeah,
definitely.
Because that is often people's means of discovery.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Maybe more with jazz than other forms of music.
That fewer female?
No, just that that means of discovery of like reading about jazz to then discover artists, or
I don't know.
Or like recommendations of shows you should go to. I don't know.
Maybe. I find it interesting that you're so often called a triple threat, which is amazing because you certainly are. You're a quadruple threat.
Singer, songwriter, guitarist.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't find that phrase used very. It's a musical theater phrase you think of typically, like singer, dancer, actor, whatever.
Right.
But I find it interesting that the fact that you play guitar and also sing and also write is like, wow, you know what I mean? And it is because, and I don't know if this is fair to say, but that jazz guitar and like the jazz kind of compositions and arranging that you're doing is a different animal, and it's not just like, let me just add some lyrics, and it's a different thing than a singer-songwriter. But at the same time, it feels funny to call it a triple threat, singer-songwriter, guitar player. Have you ever heard a man be, referred to that way? Does that ring true to you?
To call a man a triple threat like that? I'm feeling shamed because I called one of our recent guests a triple threat for being a singer-songwriter producer. So now I'm wondering if I use it in a gendered
No,
way.
I think that.
No, which is fine. I'm thinking now.
I mean, I'm sure it's a wonderful thing to say. There's nothing wrong with it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. It's like, wow, women who can do more than one thing.
Right.
Oh.
And also, but think about the rock world.
Touché.
Think about the rock world. You never would call a singer like someone who writes and does all those things.
Yeah, I guess probably it's like in this jazz world that we're talking about, there's not so many reference from of women guitar player, singer, blah blah blah.
It's not such a common thing.
No, not at all.
Why do you think that is?
Well, that's I would ask myself from like when I picked the electric guitar, why there's like no female guitar players? Why aren't like my girls playing guitar with me? And this is anecdotal and kind of like relates with what we're saying. But like at that moment, I was playing rock and everything, and they would like the compliment would be like, "Wow, you play like a man." And and not only that, I would feel good about it.
Right. That shit is
Check
totally
that out.
internalized.
It's so crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy. I mean,
But of course you would feel good about it, but it's also probably, what was that, 10 years? That was a long time ago now.
15 probably.
That our consciousness wasn't tuned in to like say, wait, that's not a cool thing to say. Be like, awesome, thank you.
Well, it's like, just grow like a girl was the worst insult in the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I like these questionings, I like I feel like we are in this sort of like state of mind where we are actually like rethinking everything.
Well, because there's I don't think we are being dramatic when we examine what that language does.
Exactly.
Because I do think that it has a big impact. Because as a very young child, you make very simple connections in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
yes.
man, good, girl, bad. Like that's what you're understanding from these phrases.
Exactly. So the language is the first, absolutely the first thing that we need to review, man.
One good example from... Let's start there. So hard. It's hard. I was going to say an example of from when I was in a rock band, Parlor Tricks, and it was 3 women singing harmonies up front and 3 guys playing in the back, and we would be a little press write-up promoting a show that we had coming up, and it would say electric, say like rock, like chaotic rock, like raucous party time rock, Electric 6 with opener female trio Parlor Tricks. So like not describing the quality of our music, what kind of music is it, but just the fact that we're female is a characteristic enough as like a
Did you guys ever like debate the makeup of your band?
Oh, well, that's why we changed the name in a big way.
Yeah, but just also kind of in what could be perceived as a gendered setup of 3 dudes playing the music and then the 3 girls up front in matching outfits singing. I
think that's a true sign of like the times in the past, like 2.5, 3 years. I think by now things would have been very different.
And what would have been different?
I think the way we dressed would have been different. I think that we would have been more
tried to have a
aware
woman
of
musician
that.
in the band.
What was the name of the band?
Parlor Tricks.
Yes.
I'm sure you know.
Now I'm totally connecting. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we wouldn't have added we were, a lot of times we would say the reason that the 6 of us work so well touring and being together all the time was because of the 3 and 3 dynamic. We did have the male energy and the female energy, and we balanced each other out so well. So we kind of approached it from that kind of way as opposed to like, let's mix it up
but it's
more.
not exact math. Like, I wonder if now if Lily was putting a band together, if she would be very intentional about finding a woman to play music in the band.
I think collectively, the collective consciousness for this is like just been exploded open in the past even 2 years, 3 years, and so I think it would be very
or
different
like 1
now.
year.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Wow. But you will now be setting this example when the next generation, younger than you, they're going to say, I want to play jazz guitar like Camila. Like, and that's so exciting. It's great.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then now you also did you add the singing and the songwriting in more recently, or was that something you were doing when you were playing rock
Well, when I was playing rock guitar and I wasn't that part of my life, I didn't consider myself like a vocalist, you know? Like, actually, I had a band where I was I was the writer and I was kind of the leader of it, but I wouldn't sing. I had a singer, like, main lead singers, and I was just, like, lead singer, and I would just play guitar and background vocals. But I always, like, used my voice for, you know, musical purpose. Like, I would sing a song, but, you know, I kind of, like, it was really sort of a very natural instrument for me.
It's always funny when singers don't know that they can sing, and then they're like, "Oh yeah,
I know."
I can sing. It makes me crazy.
I feel like it's one of the first things I did in my conscious life is like check all of my talents to see what I could exploit.
Like, I'm not
someone
miss
to
that.
not
I'm
find
not just
that.
missing that. And also, you're so on this new record, Ambar.
Yeah.
You're so expressive vocally. Not only like it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous album, but your vocals are so just you have emotion behind it in a way that's like a performance. You know, it's just beautiful.
Thanks.
What does Ambar mean?
Ambar is the Spanish for ember. Ember?
Amber?
Like ember. Yeah, like
ember, like a fire, like a burning ember.
Yes, it's actually, if I'm correct with the words, I think it's a resin.
Resin.
The resin that the trees secrete
Yeah.
when they're
So
actually
amber.
wounded. It's like a protective kind of liquid that they release to protect to heal.
I did not know that's what it did.
Me neither.
Wow.
Like, it was, kind of like I called one of the songs from the album, I called Amber, more related with the translation of my grandfather's last name, you know, because it was a song dedicated to him. But then, and the song was about, like, healing process and, you know, like, overcoming and all that. And then I kind of, like, checked out the word and then I realized that it has all this, like,
Wow.
amazing healing properties and all
meant to
that.
be.
Yeah, it was super synchronic and
Yeah. That's cool.
It's also great. I mean, jazz as an art form has been this mode of resistance and protest and all of these things, but lyrics, you can't compete with lyrics in being able to communicate ideas. And so, you know, you have a song, what is it? This Is Not America, for example. Pretty clear statement, you know, and you're able now, exploring songwriting, to have a whole nother level of expression.
Yeah, that's actually an arrangement of a song by David Bowie and Pat Metheny.
Amazing. Did you know that?
No.
That's amazing. So you
but
didn't write that?
I didn't write
Okay.
that. No, we just did an arrangement of that song. We kind of found it and was like, whoa, we kind of need this right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When is the album out? We don't have a date yet? Okay.
I'll post very soon. I think I'll have dates and, like, specifics in, like, literally this week.
Okay.
And it's super exciting stuff. So
Super excited.
Yeah.
Are you playing stuff off that new record on Friday?
definitely, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll be playing off of
Ambar.
I wanted to ask if, as a kick-ass woman in jazz, if you could make a pledge to yourself for 2018.
a pledge.
What would it be?
Yeah, I'm asking you to make one now on this show.
What is a pledge?
Promise.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Like something that you're going to hold yourself accountable for. Like personally,
should all do
professionally.
that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's a great.
That's a really
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to do it
Oh,
later.
God.
So you start thinking over it. And I'm putting you on the spot.
really.
Yeah.
And also because I kind of know what I
Yeah?
have to do, but I'm like
Let's hear
a
it.
little. Well, I feel. Damn, am I pledging for this? Okay, I feel that, like, I mean, okay, let me put my thoughts together. Yeah. There's definitely, like, this feeling of, like, a mission or something that I have, that it is sort of like, I mean, I definitely feel that I can achieve it through music, but I also feel like I need to do more, you know? This is, like, what I've been feeling lately, you know? And and it actually has to do with, like, the big sort of humanistic issues of our society. You know, like I do feel that I have to become, you know, like more outspoken about things that like I actually don't agree with, or things that I feel that are urgent, you know, like, and I do have like this, like, ooh, like this, almost like a, I need to do something about this, you know. When we talk, I mean, yeah, we're talking about some of these issues, but also, I mean, when I think about like even, you know, environment, when I think about like, yeah, my fellow, you know, my fellow people, you know, I want to be able to create like change for like, literally, it sounds like it's cliche, but like literally I want us to do better, you know?
So you see trying to figure out how to do that through your art and also outside of your art.
Yeah. I mean, I have asked myself, and I've tried to like, you know, sort of figured out maybe some ways of activism, or you know, I've donated to the ACLU, but like I don't, or Earth Justice or whatever, but like I feel like I need to do more. Yeah, that's my pledge.
Okay, that's a good one.
That, yeah.
I mean, I feel like you are. Thank you so much for coming on the show and being so open and talking about this stuff with us. I mean, that's huge.
Thanks.
Yeah. I feel like you're already starting to embark on your pledge. Not to put too much importance on our little podcast, but to have these conversations and being someone who's now in the public eye, that people love your music and will listen to this and be inspired to maybe make that pledge for themselves. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And listen to the music. That's the thing, I think, is like it is important to come on here and talk about the things that we do, and your art is amazing. And we want to not that would go overlooked, but everyone should listen. Ambar, the last one, it was Traces. Traces. That's out now.
Yeah.
Get that. So.
Thank you.
And come to Jazzfest. Everyone should come and see you at Jazzfest. Winter Jazzfest.
There you go.
It's going to be amazing. What was the Jazz is coming?
Jazz is coming.
Yeah. Winter is coming. Jazz is coming.
All right, Camila, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been fun.